Okay. Good evening, dear colleagues and participants. My name is Farida Seyidova. I am the coordinator of the Mevlana Research Institute at Khazar University in Baku, Azerbaijan. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar organized by the Balkan History Association. Our today's lecture is titled Formation of the New Orthodox Christian Community of Istanbul in the Transition Period, Silk Weavers, Gold Silver Thread Makers, and Kastorian Furriers, between years 1455 and 1535. We are honored to have as our distinguished speaker Dr. Nuray Ocakli, faculty member at Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University. Dr. Ocakli is a historian renowned for her extensive work with primary archival materials. Her research offers deep insights into medieval urban societies as well as economic and social history of the Ottoman Empire. She is an author and contributor to numerous scholarly publications, including Urban Societies in Medieval Europe, Legacy of Constantinople, Turkish Scholars Working on Ottoman Economic and Social History, Construction and Reconstruction in Medieval Urban Europe, Everyday Life in Medieval Urban Europe, various perspectives on music culture. Beyond her strictly academic pursuits, Dr. Ocakli is also deeply involved in the intersection of history and the arts. Her fascinating research on the autopiano of Sultan Abdülhamid II is a testament to her versatile scholarly interests. We are grateful to have her expertise with us today. Thank you all for joining. Dr. Ocakli, the floor is yours. Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Seyidova. I would like to share my PowerPoint presentation at first, then I'm going to turn off my camera. Okay. And just wait, please. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here today and listening to my presentation about formation of the new Orthodox Christian community of Istanbul in the transition period. In fact, this presentation is a part of my research project that I completed in 2023, and I presented results of the study in the conference on urban societies in medieval Europe in 2024. And my article has already been published as chapter in the latest volume of book series of the Institute of Medieval Studies, Nova University of Lisbon. And when the negotiations with the publisher are completed, the volume is going to be available as ebook for everyone. Sources of my study are Ottoman surveys and register books. Keeping detailed surveys and register books was an important part of the Ottoman state tradition since the formation era. Ottomans kept many kinds of survey books to record specific information for tax and military purposes, one of which is endowment survey books registering revenues of pious foundations. An early 16th century register of the tax revenues allocated to the Sultan Mehmed II's mosque in Istanbul is one of the significant examples of these books. including tax revenues of native and forced immigrants, Orthodox Christian communities, and many details about the community members, which is an early detailed source for the demographic, social, economic, and cultural transformations in Istanbul in the second half of the 15th century. Records in the survey shed an important light on the formation process of the new Orthodox Christian community of Istanbul in the transition period. Contemporary sources indicate that population of Constantinople had deteriorated since the Fourth Crusade. Many suburbs were either abandoned or not in the Byzantine hands anymore. Moreover, the population of the city had been reduced due to the outbreak of plague in 1435. When Constantinople became the capital of the Ottoman Empire, the city was emptied and deserted. The main tasks of the Sultan after the conquest were to reconstruct and repopulate the city urgently. The Sultan proclaimed pledge of security to encourage the native Christians to return, and also he invited the clergy to elect a new patriarch. Records in the first Ottoman survey of Istanbul, completed in December 1455, indicate the positive results of the pledge of security. But on the other hand, seeing the desperate situation after the conquest, some members of the Christian community left the city soon. Contemporary Ottoman and Byzantine chroniclers state that the Sultan invited voluntary immigrants to settle in the new capital, and he promised to grant these settlers any house or mansion of their choice as freehold property. Records in the 1455 survey book shows that Muslim households came and occupied mansions and houses in the city, but after seeing that there was no survival in the ruined and abandoned city, they returned to their hometowns very soon. Contemporary chroniclers report that the Sultan issued imperial decrees ordering forced migration and compulsory settlement of not only Christian and Jewish, but also Muslim households from every territory of his dominions. It is a great chance for medievalists to be able to compare records in the 1455 survey book and 1535 endowment register to see the results of the demographic policies implemented in the second half of the 15th century. There had already been Christian householders found recorded in the 1455 survey from the Aegean Islands, Macedonia, Bursa, Edirne, and Black Sea ports, in the quarters of Galata and Istanbul districts, which indicate the pro-Ottoman commercial networks and ties of Constantinople with many regions, ports, towns, cities, trade, and craft centers. And 1535 register shows that during the repopulation and revitalization process, households from the same regions and cities were deported to Istanbul to strengthen the traditional socio-economic ties of the city. During the wave of forced migration, many guild communities and skilled householders from different parts of the Ottoman Balkans, Aegean Islands, Anatolia, and Black Sea region became a part of the new Orthodox Christian community of Istanbul in the new era, such as the Peloponnesian households from Morea were deported better in their knowledge of trades, and they were settled in the city center. Members of native and forced immigrants communities are recorded in the 1535 endowment survey book by name. Aim of keeping endowment surveys is to determine the revenues allocated to pious foundations. For this reason, most probably the survey officer did not ask detailed questions to the householders other than their names. In this case, the answer of a householder for the question would be his name and his father's name, such as Manol, son of Luca, from the community of Trabzon, residing in the quarter of Aya Trabzon. Or a householder may define his identity with his community affiliation, hometown, guild, or name of his master. Yani, son of Mihal from Morea. Mihal the Bostancı, son of Yani, and Dimitrano, the apprentice of Andaria. For this reason, there are traits of not all, but some householders recorded in the survey book. But even these records capture interesting information concerning the craft specializations of Orthodox Christian householders in the late 15th and early 16th centuries. Records in the 1535 survey book highlight a variety of urban jobs performed by the Orthodox Christian craftsmen in different quarters of Istanbul. A table in the article lists names of Orthodox Christian craftsmen, their trades, and their residential quarters to depict the interesting data in the ledger, such as blacksmiths from Agribos and a prayer beads maker from Midilli. And also, it is very interesting for me to find records of Orthodox Christian householders from Karaman, most probably deported to Istanbul after the conquest of Karaman in 1474, and more than half a century after their forced migration. Their hometown was still a part of their identity. And also, records of guild member Orthodox Christian musicians are very interesting for me in the survey book, which indicate the contributions of the Orthodox Christian instrument players to the cosmopolitan culture and music of Istanbul, such as Yorgi the lute player. And Lampas silk weavers and gold silver thread makers. They are recorded in the survey book, which informs us about the birth of a new silk industry in Istanbul. The first Ottoman silk industry flourished in Bursa in the first half of the 14th century. Court records indicate that dependency on the Persian raw silk promoted the beginning of sericulture in Bursa. And at the end of the 14th century, the ancient Silk Road from Persia to Constantinople through Trabzon had already been diverted to Bursa, and the city became a major commercial entrepot between Asia and Europe in the mid-15th century. And during the process of repopulation, reconstruction, and revitalization of Istanbul, Bursa had still been the most important Ottoman center of international trade. But the conquest of Constantinople was the real turning point in the history of the Ottoman silk industry. Records of forced immigrant master craftsmen weaving lampa silk fabrics and making gold-silver threads in the survey indicate that, as a result of the demographic policies implemented in the second half of the 15th century, these craftsmen became a part of the Orthodox Christian community of the capital, and they contributed to the development of a new silk industry in Istanbul. Kemha was a kind of silk fabric woven in lampas silk technique, which combines silk and metal threads to create areas of gold-silver ground and patterns. Ottoman sultans and dynasty members wore clothes made of valuable furs covered with silk fabrics, woven with silk, gold, and silver threads. These valuable clothes were not just worn in the palace, but given to members of the ruling class and diplomats as gifts. Sources in the Ottoman Palace Archive indicate that demand for valuable furs and majestic fabrics had increased rapidly to make these valuable clothes in the royal workshops. Names and salaries of royal tailors who specialized on making valuable clothes given as gift are recorded in the palace register books. A comparison of 1526 and 1545 register books register books of artisans in the royal workshops indicates the increasing number of apprentices in the group of royal craftsmen, weaving lampas silk fabrics and making gold-silver threads, which was the result of the growing demand of Ottoman court for lampas silk fabrics in the first half of the 16th century. Based on the archival sources, it's indicate that holidays and specifically holy month Ramadan were the specific periods when the number of valuable clothes given as gift increased significantly. 16th century Ottoman chronicler Selanik'i informs that sultans gave too many valuable clothes as gift in special occasions, such that these gifts given during just a royal wedding festival reached about 4,000 valuable clothes in the second half of the 16th century. It was a huge market for the suppliers of fur and majestic fabrics for the court. Besides the royal workshops in the palace, there were other workshops weaving kemha in the capital, and there were dealers trading majestic fabrics from Europe, Frangi kemha, to fulfill the growing demand of the Ottoman court. The 1535 Endowment Survey provides names of the Orthodox Christian master craftsmen weaving kemha and making gold and silver threads in their workshops in the quarters of Istanbul. Native and forced immigrant Orthodox Christian community of the capital formed a distinct group registered in the book as Cemaati Rumiyane Istanbul, the Orthodox Christian community of Istanbul. Native Orthodox Christian communities, such as the community of Balat, Fener, Galata, and the forced immigrant communities from Midilli, Kefe, Trabzon, and many more smaller communities and householders are recorded in their own residential quarters, such as Quarter of Midilliyan, Quarter of Kefeluyan, Quarter of Aya Trabzon, Quarter of Ohri, and Quarter of Nibolu. Personal name, father's name, sometimes family name, and trade for each male member of these communities are recorded in the ledger one by one. Craft specializations of Orthodox Christian men provide significant information on trades and specific traditional guilds in the hometowns of the forced immigrant Orthodox Christian householders. This study focuses on lampas silk weavers, gold silver thread makers, and Kastorian householders. But the survey book has a great potential to be a primary source for onomastics of personal and family names, history of other craft communities, profile and residential quarters of Orthodox Christian musicians, profile of specific residential quarters, and more in the transition period. Majestic fabrics woven with gold, silver, and silk threads were one of the most valuable commodities in history, produced under the strict control of the state authority. Records of the lampas silk weavers and gold-silver thread makers in the 1535 register indicate that promoting a new silk industry in Istanbul had been the priority, while choosing the forced immigrant Orthodox Christian communities and households to be settled in Istanbul. And among the forced immigrant householders transferred to Istanbul, there were guild masters from the centers of Byzantine silk industry. Also, it is surprising to find the record of Orthodox Christian velvet weaver in the survey. Secondary literature on the textile history dates the beginning of the velvet industry in Istanbul back to 18th century, after the building of velvet workshops in Sultan Selim III's complex in Üsküdar. You will find a list of names and residential quarters of the Orthodox Christian lampas, silk weavers, and gold-silver thread makers in the article. And Orthodox Christian Furriers Castoria is a big part of this valuable clothes making for the Ottoman palace and bureaucrats. It is very surprising for me to find householders from Castoria recorded in the survey book. But I think I shouldn't be surprised, because 15th century Ottoman registers indicate the significance of Castoria for imperial economies since the medieval ages. 17th century Ottoman price registers list names and prices of highly demanded valuable furs of Castoria to be used making valuable clothes in Istanbul. And also, mink fur was very popular among the members of the Ottoman dynasty and the ruling elites, such that demand for mink fur peaked in the reign of Sultan Ibrahim I, which is the age of mink in the history of the Ottoman Empire. Financial and political power of the Furriers Guild in the capital increased significantly in the age of mink, and the second half of the 17th century constitute the golden age of the Kastorian Furriers in Istanbul. But records in the 1535 register reveals that history of the Kastorian Furriers in the Ottoman capital is much older than the 17th century. Todorov, son of Yorgi from Castoria, was resident in the quarter of Ayayani inside the gate, and Costa, son of Yorgi from Castoria, was resident in the quarter of Ayayani outside the gate. Fur manufacturing was the traditional industry of Castoria, but all the trades of craftsmen, such as Dimitri the Furrier, as recorded in the ledger, neither Todorov nor Costa was recorded in the survey book as the member of any guild community. What might have been the professions or family specializations of these householders that made their fathers or grandfathers important for the Ottoman central authority to be settled in the new capital? There is a greater story behind this forced migration and compulsory settlement. There is a pre-Ottoman origin of these industries and fur trade in Castoria. The first Ottoman survey of Castoria illustrates pre-Ottoman origins of the traditional industries and fur trade in Castoria. In the struggle between Emperor Mihail Palaiologos' Nicaean army and the forces of Latins and Epirotes, both French and Greek versions of Chronicle of Morea report that Cuman cavalrymen in the Nicaean army marched to Castoria in 1259 and fought in the Battle of Castoria. Byzantine rule was restored in the region, and most probably the trade-based socioeconomic structure and the traditional industries of the province developed during the Byzantine restoration. Records in the first Ottoman survey of Castoria indicate that Cumans were settled in the city center and villages of the province, and they served as the castle guards of the city, and also they contributed to the rural economy of the region. But some other records in the first Ottoman survey book of Castoria show that there might have been other purposes of the Emperor Mihail Palaiologos while settling the Cumans in the region. In the 13th century, it was the policy of Nicaean emperors to besettle Cuman tribes in border regions, which was considered as a successful imperial policy to restore the security on the frontiers. But records in the first Ottoman survey book of Castoria show that The Cuman settlers of the region could well have played an important role in the formation of new trade links between Kastoria and the centers of northern fruit trade in the Black Sea region. There are 51 householders recorded in the merchants' quarter of Kastoria by name, and I gave a list of these names in the article. There are very specific names indicating the ethnic origin of these householders, such as Slavic names, Islam, Atanas, and Zupan, and an Albanian name, Ashtin, and pre-Islamic Turkic Kuman names, Togan and Balaban. Kuman names in the merchants' community of Kastoria indicate that coming of Cumans to the province in 1259 was not only due to the military purposes, but also commercial reasons. Cumans controlling the major crime and coastal towns were the main actors participating in and benefiting from the Black Sea trade until the Mongols' invasion in the 13th century. Sudak was the principal commercial port for the northern fruit trade in the 12th and 13th centuries, and the contemporary Arab chronicler Ibn al-Athir describes Sudak as a city under the control of Cumans, who traded valuable furs before the Mongols' invasion. Byzantine chroniclers report two important commercial treaties signed between Emperor Mikhail Palaiologos and the Sultan of Mamluks just after the restoration of Byzantine rule in Constantinople and in 1281. Both of the treaties underline the importance of Sudak for the economy of the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic world. The first Ottoman cadastral survey of Kastoria indicates that after 1259, Cumans became the members of the merchants' community, and they might well have formed a new link between Kastoria and Sudak. There are important results of this new trade link. New trade links would provide more pelts of valuable furs for the Furriers community of Kastoria to process. In this way, the volume of production in the fur industry of the town would increase, and the trade of the valuable furs would contribute to the economy of the empire in the restoration period. A comparison of literature and archival sources reveals the significance of the fur industry for the economy of the Byzantine Empire in the 13th century that Emperor Mikhail Palaiologos designed demographic, military, and commercial policies to promote. And most probably the Furriers community of Kastoria had been a part of the emperor's economic policies in the restoration period. 200 years after the Battle of Kastoria, coming of Cumans and the policies implemented by the emperor, fur industry of Kastoria was such an important sector for the Ottoman imperial economy that Orthodox Christian households from Kastoria were settled in Istanbul to form a direct trade link between Kastoria and the Ottoman capital in the second half of the 15th century. The 1535 endowment survey is the main source for studies on the formation process of the Orthodox Christian community, early history of Orthodox Christian craftsmen, and artisanal culture in Istanbul. First immigrant members of the Orthodox Christian community brought their traditional craft, specializations, artisanal knowledge and experience, guild traditions, local identity, words, tastes, scents, musical instruments, songs, and more to Istanbul in the second half of the 15th century. And they contributed to the new Ottoman silk industry flourishing in Istanbul. They manufactured one of the most precious commodities in history, made of combination of silk, gold and silver threads. The forced immigrant households from Kastoria were most probably the wealthiest members of the Merchants' Guild, who formed a direct link between Kastoria and Istanbul in the second half of the 15th century. My study focuses on a very limited aspect of the significant information recorded in the 1535 survey book. Onomastics of personal names, family names, profile of specific residential quarters, Orthodox Christian musicians, elements of local cultures, and many more aspects are waiting for the specialist to be studied. This valuable survey book should be analyzed by many professors. There are too many untouched topics are in this book, and I hope after me, this book is analyzed by other scholars. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Ocakli, for this insightful presentation. And we learned from your presentation a lot of information about Ottoman social, cultural context in 15th century.
Thank you very much.
Let's move to questions and answers. And you can raise your hand or type on the chat. Here we have a question. Theo Zanatos. Please, Theo Zanatos wants ask.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Unfortunately, as I can see, you cannot see me. You can just hear me.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much, Hocam, for your very interesting presentation. I am studying Nüfus Defterleri, Ottoman says from the 19th century concerning Istanbul. My dissertation is on Ioannina, not Kastoria, but I am finding Kastorians all the time. I have 2 comments and a question for you. I would like to comment, if I may, that Atanas is a common Christian name, Athanasios. I find many Atanas in my defters too. So, because I think that in the Cumans, you referred to a Slavic origin of
a Slavic name because while I was studying on the Bulgarian regions survey books in the 15th century, I saw too many Atanas, and there, generally in the Greek side, Macedonian side, Athanasius I saw too many times. That's why I thought that Atanas, the Slavic version, Athanasius is the Greek version. But
yeah, Tanas and Atanas are very common. So just you can keep it in mind if you want. Also, it was striking for me the fact that you connected the local animals of Kastoria with the art of the fur makers, because a prominent Greek historian, Apostolos Vakalopoulos, says that the main excellent ability of the Kastorians was not the fact that they had many animals in the region, but that they would import animal hides, thin layers, and they could connect them in a almost invisible way together, which could connect with your other profession, the other profession that you've mentioned, the thread makers.
Yeah.
Finally,
I think this is sable fur, isn't it? The thin one, it's sable fur. Samur.
Yeah.
But these are the different fur animals recorded in the Ottoman price registers. It says it's a Kastorian, Göllü Kestri's, coming from Göllü Kestri. That's why I put these
Amazing,
in the...
amazing. I had no knowledge. That's why I
We're going
wanted
to
to
read,
discuss it with
I
you.
explain all them in the
Yeah,
article.
yeah. Because Vakalopoulos just says the import. He goes not into that detail that you provided us with. And finally, the question: could you please provide us with the code of the Mufassal Defter?
You are going to see in my article, it's 1535 register is Tapu Tahrir defterleri 210 to 210.
Okay,
Tapu
thank you
Tahrir
very much.
50. You are going to see I analyzed just as a part of this valuable information, but there's too many things to work on in the survey. Thank you very much, Stezanos.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, dear Theo. Is there any question? I want to ask Dr. Nuray, Christian artisans are still exists in Istanbul. Yes, is it?
Yeah, no, not too many, but yes.
Because elementary we saw this in movies, in films too.
Yeah, yeah.
They are exists. I saw there is no one typed or raised, so we can conclude.
Sure.
We have reached the end of our session. I would like to thank Dr. Nuray Ocakli once again for her valuable contribution and all our participants for their engagement and for Timothy technical help and Dr. Mihai Dragnea for organization.
Yes, thank you very much.
On behalf of Balkan History Association. Thank you very much.